Hey everyone, it's been over 2 minutes, haven't been raped yet, and I think it's time to put an end to the hysteria around masculinity. Hi, I'm Diana Davisson. This week I'm going to talk about a 3-part documentary series called Extreme UK, done by the BBC, hosted by Reggie Yates. And this series purports to talk about masculinity in the UK.
In this series, I'm travelling to the extreme edge of modern British masculinity.
Now, in this series of so-called documentaries, all you find out is what the filmmakers have already concluded. I'm going to show you. I'm going to start with the first one, called Gay and Under Attack. Now, you would think that they would be asking homosexuals what their ideas about masculinity are. No, not so much. Turns out to be just a show about homophobia. So when Yates goes to a barber and ends up asking a gay man there and a religious man there whether or not they can live together.
Do you think that your versions of happiness can exist side by side?
I think so. It's like if you go to a restaurant with somebody and one person wants to order pizza but the other person wants to have chips.
We can probably be in the same restaurant, but he will have his table there and he will be, doing his thing on his table there, and I will be on my table over there.
Well, that's encouraging. We have two people agreeing to disagree. But that's not good enough for Yates. That's not what he's looking for. You'll note he asked them about their version of happiness, not their version of masculinity. And then he goes on to show his lack of religious tolerance.
I personally feel that I'm attracted to every single beautiful woman. I have this urge, but just because of this urge, is it justified for me to go after every single beautiful woman that I find attractive?
Here you've got an Islamic imam taking the most passive stance on homosexuality that you could find. But that's still not good enough for Yates. He needs everybody to agree on everything, and that should be Yates's idea of what is correct, the proper way of being a human being. Now, he runs into a bit of a problem when he goes to a gay club. And we know he's deep undercover because instead of his normal attire, he's wearing a pink hat. Now, to set this up, Yates thinks that music is misogynistic and oppressive towards gay people, and he's uncomfortable with his own culture.
Get a little funny talking about it, because whether I like it or not, the music that I love, definitely in bits of my past, has reflected a view that makes me uncomfortable, if I'm totally honest.
But when he talks to the DJ at the club...
Do you get what I mean? So I'm not going to let things like Step on Chichi Man or any of those kind of lyrics really bother me. I'm there to dance. I don't care what they're talking about. Yeah. I know that certain people do have a problem with it.
Yes, people like Reggie Yates.
One of the records that comes to mind is Log On by Elephant Man, and there's T.O.K., Chichi Man. These were songs that were massive when I was like 21, 22.
But I find it's more the white community that has problems with the words of the bashment rather than...
Yeah. But it's not just bashment, don't get me wrong.
So what we've learned is that, according to a gay DJ, Reggie suffers from a white person problem. A complex, even. That sounds about right.
What do you think the reaction would be then if you played Elephant Man Log On in a club like this?
They'd all start logging on.
So can Yates accept that gay people don't give a shit about the lyrics when that's coming from a DJ at a gay club?
It feels like Mark is trying to reclaim these songs.
Apparently not. Yates seems to suffer from terrible listening skills. Now, the most interesting thing happens next. He ends up talking to a lesbian about her perception of gay men and her intolerance towards them.
As much as I'm gay, I don't like to personally hear about two gay guys in their sex life. Like, for me, it doesn't feel right. But then I feel bad because I'm gay myself. How can I be prejudiced with somebody else that's gay?
Can you understand how for someone like myself that sounds absolutely mental? Because I'm sure the last thing that you want is for anyone to judge you or be prejudiced towards you.
Of course, exactly.
Now, I think that's the story he should be covering in a documentary about homosexuality. This really has nothing to do with masculinity. But does he do that? Does he care to investigate? No.
Well, there's guys daggering guys in there. If you know what daggering is, I mean, you can put that together yourselves, even if you don't know what it is. There are guys daggering guys in there.
Poor Reggie, with his little pink hat. Maybe he should have actually gone in there armed with some better questions.
Sounds absolutely mental because...
Just to make it clear that this documentary has nothing to do with masculinity, Reggie Yates then interviews a trans woman. Well, obviously she feels feminine and not masculine. I have no idea how this connects to his subject matter. But again, he gets to feel morally superior because there he is standing there in his pink coat of understanding.
So that's them two photos. That one was
Sexuality you was?
Yeah, because when I was at high school, I didn't really have a choice other than to come out as gay.
And he only seems to have one solidarity suit because he wears the exact same outfit the next time he meets Tallulah, who again is not a man for the purpose of this study. So let's move on to documentary 2, which actually is a bit of a study on the subject. It's called Men at War.
I want to find out why a new generation of men thinks the real victims of sex discrimination are guys.
Now, since the agenda of the show is obvious, and they are basically just proving their conclusions already formed, let's jump to the end and see what it is they're going to be telling us, just to save a bit of time and make it more understandable.
Young men need role models. They always have and they always will. And it just seems as though this movement is providing role models, just a different kind to the ones that I agree with.
The first person that Reggie attacks is Roosh V.
2012, a US civil rights group included Roosh on a list of websites they branded hateful and misogynistic.
I love the raised eyebrow. All right, now Roosh did a pretty good response, so I'll link that below. About 20 minutes of the documentary was spent on him, so I'll leave that up to him to rebut. What I want to do is just focus on exposing the lies.
You know, there's a room full of men who are excited about what they're about to hear. So am I.
So Reggie has done some research on Roosh in advance, and he's obviously read the outline for the seminar he is about to attend.
The name of the talk is The State of Man. One of the first bullet points in terms of what his speech will contain is something about the paradox of modern women. It feels like it's a lot broader than here's how to chat up the lady that you fancy at the bar.
Yet when they ask him about the lecture at the end, he says,
It's been a much broader talk than I expected, in all honesty. I sort of came here expecting to hear how to pick up women, but it seems to be more about masculinity more than anything else.
which is supposed to be the subject of your documentary. That's why you're there, Reggie. But what you're really here to do is confirm your conclusions.
And there are some really offensive, strong views from what, on face value, seems to be the meekest of the meek.
Meekest of the meek. Reggie is stunned that these average guys dare to have their own opinions.
It takes an outsider to come here and not be afraid of the hate crime laws that you guys have to give the truth.
That's the point Reggie should focus on. Because how can a discussion about masculinity take place in this climate of censorship and documentaries like this?
I wish there were more men here who could share their views, but if they do, we all know that people are going to go after their jobs and shame them.
So Reggie goes next to a guy who actually did lose his career.
Comedian Daniel O'Reilly built an online audience in the millions, with short vines showing proper geezer dapper laughs out on the pool.
This guy is a professional comedian. He's not making a statement or being an activist regarding masculinity. He's a comedian making fun of it.
And when it was alleged he'd made a joke about rape at a gig, Daniel found himself on Newsnight, defending his entire act.
Daniel goes on to explain how he was the victim of politics.
I blew up outside of the conventional way of becoming...
It wasn't that one incident, it was just the speed that you got to where you were.
I was getting shit from the... Oh, sorry, I was getting stuff from them same journalists, from them same people, months before that. They were just looking for something.
Daniel lost his TV show and made a public apology that he didn't believe he owed to anybody. Why?
The only reason why I quit at the time is because what the media were putting on the family. It was horrible.
Now he goes on to explain the point of his character, Dapper Laughs, and finishes with the real issue, and it's not about masculinity at all.
I think the UK, especially the media, needs to decide whether or not they want freedom of speech or they want to stop people being offended by comedy. I think comedy is the last avenue we've got.
But does Reggie get the point? Nope.
That all got a bit emotional, and I can understand why. You know, this is a man who feels as though he lost his moment, his opportunity.
Because of the media. You know, those people you work for, Reggie. No wonder you're wiping your brow when you make it out of that club. That was a close brush with having to actually take some accountability. for what you're doing in the past and with this documentary. Narrowly avoided, Reggie manages to keep his distance and deliver his predetermined judgment.
He is normalizing a certain level of humor that a lot of people find offensive and a lot of people have a real problem with.
People like you, Reggie. You are the problem. Oh, well, actually, it's you and...
feminism.
I've never really been in an environment where anyone at any point has ever said that they have an issue with feminism. And I kind of thought that that was something that everyone in the modern world thought, but oh, how wrong am I?
So Reggie actually claims to know nothing about anti-feminism. Well, it can't possibly be true, or why would they be making this documentary? They obviously had to do some kind of research somewhere. That statement is just as absurd as when he says,
"And I'm not a feminist."
So, well, at least he picks a good guide to anti-feminism.
British journalist Milo Yiannopoulos has written for The Telegraph, news sites, and has his face all over YouTube.
Wait. Why did you say news sites? Breitbart. That's where he works. He's the tech editor, he's a writer at Breitbart. That was pretty unprofessional.
How are you? Yeah, good, thanks. Listen, you are the perfect person for me to speak to at this point.
So let's start out with our conclusion again, just to save some time.
Now I find these views surprising. And I'm not a feminist, but you don't have to be one to be challenged by Milo's point of view.
Milo's point of view? Well, that's not really what Reggie is here to ask him about. He's supposed to be getting an education on the manosphere, so let's find out if he's capable of listening.
Can you sort of explain to me what the manosphere is and what it's broken up into?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very eccentric sort of group of men who feel dissatisfied with the way that society is going.
Kind of feels like it's two sides going against each other. You've got the manosphere and all the permutations of that, and then you've got feminism.
Yes.
Well done, Reg. He's managed to absorb that the manosphere is a bunch of diverse groups, and that these groups are anti-feminist in common, but they have conflicts with each other. Now, if he was to examine those conflicts and those different aspects and where their differences lie, then potentially he'd be doing a documentary about masculinity. That's not really the goal here.
I've had messages about you prior to us meeting.
What he ends up focusing on...
Already? So, yeah, of course.
And what are they saying?
They say this guy's going to stitch us up, I can tell.
Surprise, surprise. Himself.
People are paranoid that I'm out to get them. There seems to be this weird sort of sense of paranoia in this world.
Now let's revisit what he said about the men in Rush's audience.
And there are some really offensive, strong views from what, on face value, seems to be the meekest of the meek.
And then listen to Reggie's current complaint.
It's frustrating to be judged before I've even begun.
So Reggie wants to find a tougher target, someone who isn't so easy to mock. And he finds them.
On top of my list, these guys.
MGTOW, which stands for Men Going Their Own Way. It's a website only for men. And they've got the best logo ever. Their logo is essentially a man kneeling to a woman holding up his credit card. It's phenomenal.
I know, right?
Popular post on here is marriage, mortgage, kids, ... Fuck that shit.
This MGTOW site looks slick and they've clearly spent money on it. So you might think someone involved would be happy to explain why. Apparently not.
Now I hate to tell you how to do your job, Reg. May I call you Reg? On that site you were admiring, they have a thing called a navigation bar. When you click About, you get a few options. There's an explanation of MGTOW, of the manosphere. They even have an FAQ page. If you're feeling adventurous, they have a forum. In case you missed it, you click this to join. But of course you need video of real people to mock.
So maybe YouTube is the best way to try and set up a talk.
So Reg posts a video invitation on YouTube.
I do think there is a small chance that we may have a conversation, but I think it will be on their terms. And if that means it's a Google chat, if that means that it's via the comment section, so be it. It's 2015, damn it.
I want you to note that he says he'd be satisfied with the conversation in the comments section. But when he returns, he says this.
There are tons of voices on here. Someone called Tate Debater has said, I know the main voices in the community don't trust your intentions, Reggie, but I would really have liked to have seen MGTOW put its best foot forward. For what it's worth, you're tackling something really out there.
Now, it's obvious that some guys said they would talk to him.
Spider says, fellow MGTOW, I don't understand the reactions to this issue. I'm MGTOW because I believe in male self-determination. I support MGTOW and do not fear anyone knowing it. So you've got someone here who's confident in his reasoning, his belief, and also confident in the MGTOW movement. And then you get the other end of the spectrum.
It's obvious he read them himself. Some guys were willing to talk to him, but he didn't pursue that. Instead, he just decided to call them cowards. And let's see if MGTOW were right not to trust him. Here's Josh, a very young MRA who decides to invite Reggie into his home later.
But there's something different here.
What is the obstacle to getting men's issues addressed in society?
He's just a teenager.
People don't know what men's issues are.
Reggie notes how young Josh is.
What on earth is it that is inspiring someone so young to say so much? And why does he feel as strongly as he does at such a young age? At 18, I wasn't thinking like this.
Aha, so something about the manosphere inspires confidence in young men. Surely that's a good thing, right, Reg?
So you live with your parents?
Yeah, mum and dad.
Okay. All right.
Really? You just stated how young Josh is and that he has this confidence, and then you feel the need to point out that he lives with his parents in their home. The only point of doing that is to tear down that confidence that you were admiring in him. That's a terrible thing to do. You're a very bad person.
At 18, Josh is not afraid to speak out. I'm just not sure why.
This will overwhelmingly be a burden on men.
Because you haven't been able to destroy him yet. You haven't had your little paws on him for long enough. You're surprised because in your world, he wouldn't have that confidence.
I have an advantage over the men who have had their lives derailed purely because I'm not coming at it from an emotional angle, which means, because if you are emotional about something, it can lead to you being aggressive.
So aside from mocking him for living with his parents, he's got not much, so he just decides to reverse everything Josh just told him.
But when your own personal experience with women has been hard, has been unfavourable, and that then affects the way that you view the world.
How can you even put into words how bad this reporting is?
It's frustrating to be judged before I've even begun.
But wait, journalism is about to reach an all-time low. So, Reggie returns to his YouTube video, and he discovers something that anyone who uses YouTube recognizes as a phenomenon. It's called the YouTube comments section. It's a shit show. It's actually entertaining. It's so bad. Now, this is not just Reggie's video. This is any video anywhere on YouTube. YouTube comments, it's a thing, Reggie. It's a thing that you obviously need to learn about. Welcome to the internet, where we don't give a shit who you are. We will roast you.
If this is what I'm receiving after literally sticking my tiny brown pinky toe into the pool that is the manosphere, what is it like for a feminist? What is it like for someone who says, I disagree with you guys?
So no, you didn't get attacked because you're black, just as women don't get attacked because they're female. But, you know, go ahead and talk to Lori Penny about internet harassment, because when you're done with that, I'll prove to you that it has nothing to do with your subject.
Well, in terms of threats, I've had everything ranging from individual attacks, people sending me pictures of, like, gross pornography with my head pasted on.
Reggie, you're a journalist, sat across from Lori Penny. Look at her fidgeting. Look at her face. Ask what we all want to know. Lori, are you doing too much cocaine? You got the crusty nose, and she ate it. I'm really concerned about her. And, as Milo pointed out,
if your entire career is based around telling white men that there is something wrong with them, you can't then complain when you get messages on Twitter saying that, you know, that somebody wants to hurt you.
Reggie then goes on to interview a man jailed for Twitter threats. Now, this was a high-profile case, and this is where the show completely falls apart.
Threats of violence and rape were traced to a young man called John Nimmo.
Why did you send those messages?
I can't see no else.
Who was arrested, tried, and jailed.
Now, John was one of two people who were jailed for the same incident. As John points out in this interview, it had nothing to do with masculinity. It didn't even have to do with feminism.
So what made you feel comfortable enough to do it online if you wouldn't do it in the real world?
I saw it trending on Twitter, that, you know, what was happening. I'm thinking that's going to happen, yeah, so I thought, why not just join in?
The other convicted person was a woman named Isabella Sorley. There is no way Reggie was unaware of Isabella. She got 12 weeks to John's 8, because, as BuzzFeed pointed out in a thorough story about it, she was a one-woman crime wave. While on bail for the trolling offense, Sorley was arrested and charged with assaulting a police officer. She had recently pleaded guilty to another assault on New Year's Eve. Sorley has woken up on the streets more than once and is still subject to a public order banning her from Leeds city centre. One magistrate called her a one-woman crime wave. Both Nimmo and Sorley said they offended for the same reason, because they enjoyed the attention and endorphin-generating effects of becoming briefly famous, or notorious, on Twitter. Without any planning or forethought, they joined a bandwagon that was already rolling. It was a game, and they enjoyed it.
Free speech is one thing, but threats of rape, or worse, feels different to me. And they're becoming more and more common online. I just don't get where all this hate is coming from.
Your own interview with John proved that it had nothing to do with the manosphere or feminism or anything. It's a phenomenon on its own. It was trending, he says. I saw it was trending, and so I looked into what it was about, and stupid me, I decided to join in. I was getting, like, retweets, and I was getting favorites and all that, and even the person I was sending the tweets to, the person I was tweeting at, was retweeting it and answering back. As with Sorley, Nimmo had, at best, only a vague idea who his victims were. Only after sending his abusive tweets did he see a TV news item about the £10 note campaign. So, online harassment, not a gender issue? I'd suggest that you do another documentary just covering that, but you don't seem to be very good at documentaries. I know the reason why.
But if you've got someone whose view is massively skewed and massively influenced by their own inadequacies or issues, then you're going to have some of your own.
You said it, Reggie. You just didn't intend on describing yourself. Now why don't you just stop being so judgmental and lighten up? Here's the rape joke of the week from our friend, Dapper Laughs.
And I wear a condom, right, is to stop the girl getting pregnant, but I've got a couple of other tips for you. Get yourself one of them morning after pills, yeah? Crush it up, put it in her drink. I'm joking, respect women, respect women.